The 621st edition of the Four Corners podcast starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
Elton ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores. 17 seconds left. And he was fouled. Here we go. Lawson with a runner. No. The rebound. Hansbrough at the gun. Got it.
They were 4 for 24.
Hansbrough on a switch on Paulus. A deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Tipped away by Johnson. It's loose. Page. Johnson.
They're dancing in the aisles. They're high-fiving. They're celebrating. They're going bananas on Franklin Street.
Pass to Britt, 15 seconds to play. Up high to Page, gets a screen from Meeks. Page driving in on the left, high off the glass for two. Louisville with 7 seconds. Jones has it, goes left corner, Black's here for three. Back iron, 1 second to play, stick up, no! Carolina wins it! The Tar Heels win it! 72-71. 6 seconds to go. Pinson comes front court. Pinson to May for the win. Got it! Luke May! He got it! 0.3 of a second! Luke May gives Carolina the 75-73 lead. Are you kidding me?
Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another live edition of the Four Corners podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Just Josh here with you guys on a Tuesday afternoon. We're a little under 7 hours away from Carolina and Kentucky in the ACC SEC Challenge. That tip-off will come your way 9:30 p.m. from Rupp Arena on ESPN. We're here to recap the press conference that Hubert Davis had yesterday. He met with the media before Carolina's final practice and, of course, before they made their way to Lexington for tonight's ball game. So we'll recap that. I've got, let's say 6-7 audio quotes that we'll play with you, and then I'll give my thoughts on them, and then we'll get out of here and go get ready for tonight's ball game. But we start every edition of the pod, as we always do, with the pod thought of the day. And I figure this was apropos because big game. I view it as a rivalry game with how much history and tradition exists between these two programs. So with that being said, I just put down the mantra that we believe in as Carolina fans. Today's pod thought on game day: play hard, play smart, play together, something Carolina's looking to bounce back and do in a much bigger way than they did, last week against Michigan State when they suffered their first loss to the Spartans down in Fort Myers at the Fort Myers tip-off. So there's your pod thought of the day. Simple, smart, but most importantly, it's effective. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into this press conference recap where, Hubert spoke for right about 14 minutes. He did address some of the stuff from the loss last week at Michigan State, but since that was, now 5 days ago, it's game day for Kentucky, focusing more on the here and now side of things. And one of the most important things that he did talk about when he met with the media was providing an injury update for senior guard Seth Trimble.
Yeah, I don't have a definitive, answer, in regards to when he's going to come back, but it's progressing fast and really well. He's shooting, he's dribbling, he's conditioning, and so it's in a really good spot, and I'm looking forward to when he can get back out there on the floor.
So there you go. That was we talked about this last night when we previewed the game, but it does appear that Seth is trending in the right direction. And by the sounds of it, could be back for non-comp play. I think when the time the injury took place, with the timeline, we kind of basically said, hey, he's probably going to be out until you get into conference play. But Trimble, after the injury, said, look, I'm a fast healer. I'll be back even quicker than that. And by all means, that appears to be right on track for him with what he said. He knows his body better than anyone else. Now, obviously, coming out of the Michigan State loss, one thing that we identified was, hey, Carolina not having him played a role, played a factor, no doubt. But you got to do you got to play with what you've got available. Carolina's down a starter. Kentucky could be down 3, rotational players tonight. Some of that, when they're healthy, are starters. So they're not going to be feeling sorry for us. But it does sound like he's heading in the right direction, and hopefully we get Seth back on the court in Carolina blue sooner rather than later. Something that we talked about last week when it happened, and because it's the first time it happened all year, and how it took this long is beyond me. But Caleb Wilson finally saw double teams. He saw it against St. Bonaventure. He really struggled with it in the first half, made an adjustment at halftime, played a lot better. Saw double team against Michigan State, albeit better players, more physical players, so on and so forth. And there were still times where Caleb Wilson made plays because of his God-given ability, but there were also times where he struggled and didn't make the play that needed to be made. And Hubert Davis just kind of spoke about him making that adjustment individually to his game because he knows in tonight's game and every game moving forward, he's going to see double teams the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely has changed throughout each game. The first time that he was doubled was against St. Bonaventure, and then obviously Michigan State was loaded towards him when he was trying to attack the basket. He was still able to get there pretty much as well. And so Caleb adjusting to that and understanding the opportunities for him to score, but also to get 2 on the ball and be able to facilitate and hit open teammates. And the great thing about Caleb is, yeah, he can score, but he's also a gifted passer and a willing passer as well. So that's good for us.
I think that's the most important thing. He was asked a follow-up question that I didn't pull because it was a quick answer, but he was asked, did he get the sense that Caleb was forcing shots while being doubled? And his answer was no. And I get that. I got that feeling as well. There were maybe sometimes there could have been a better shot that was there to be had, but with them playing at the level that he's playing, I'm pretty comfortable with him taking the shots that he's taking right now. But the best part about Caleb is, for as dominant as he can be, right, and his ability, as we've seen at different points in games, to take games over, he's not a selfish player. And so he's willing to make those passes out of a double team because, I know we're not the brightest folks here in the world, but if there's 2 guys guarding 1 guy, that means someone's open. And so it's his job to make sure the ball finds that open man while the defense is scrambling and trying to get back in position to contest, a perimeter shot, take away a driving lane, so on and so forth. I think the most important thing for Caleb is to anticipate the double, to feel the double. It's like a quarterback feeling pressure in the pocket and then making the right decision. Do you pass and score? Do you pass and facilitate? Do you play through the double team and score? So on and so forth. I would imagine that he's obviously been double teamed in practice. Probably what you're going to see, though, with the way Michigan State was able to kind of keep him at check in the second half, you'll see a lot of that same strategy tonight by Mark Pope at Kentucky and other, power conference programs moving forward. Some of these, mid-major foes that Carolina has, there's nothing they can do. They can triple team him. They can't guard him. But when you play Georgetown on Sunday, you got the Ohio State, the last Saturday before Christmas, and then conference play after that, he's going to see it. And so how he handles that's going to be really, I think, key to how effective Carolina's half-court offense can be. Great question that he was asked, and I love hearing different coaches' thought process, but obviously, Caleb Wilson's dealt with foul trouble. Henry Vassar's dealt with foul trouble. Same thing with Kai and Evans, and it feels like for the most part, Hubert Davis has taken that specific player out. And he was just asked, about his philosophy when a player picks up 2 fouls in the first frame.
It's really a trust and a feel, situational, for the game that we're in, the score, how the team is playing while somebody is on the bench. All those type of factors are things that are running through my head. But it is important because you don't want Caleb and Henry getting into foul trouble. It's just you want them out there on the floor, and so you're trying to find ways to keep him out there on the floor, but not put you in a situation where he has his third foul headed into the second half.
Yep. Look, foul trouble is inevitable. Like at some point, every player on the roster that's a starter that plays 28 plus minutes, they're going to deal with foul trouble. I think what complicates this right now for Carolina is they don't have a lot of production coming off the bench, whether it's down low or even on the wing. So when someone, does get in foul trouble, it does kind of just, maybe impale them in ways that we didn't think it would in the preseason. I've always believed you pick up 2 fouls before the under 12, you should sit to the under 8. And then from there, it's a feel it out process depending on obviously the opponent, but also depending on what the score dictates. What does it allow you to come back in, or do you maybe hold that player all the way to the under 4 timeout and pray they can get by without a foul? But it does feel like for the most part, I think he left Caleb Wilson in with 2 fouls against a mid-major opponent. But if it happens before the second media timeout, I think you can rest assured that Hubert Davis is going to take his starter out of the ball game. All right, now we'll move on to another player that we talked about, or he talked about individually. We've talked a lot about Kyan Evans and the desire for and the need for him to start shooting the ball better and being much more of an offensive threat, both from the outside and the inside. But Hubert Davis, he told the media, I'm encouraging him more to be more than just a perimeter shooter.
Yeah, one of the things that I expect, and I've talked with him about, is not just his shooting. Kyan is so beneficial to us on both ends of the floor, but from an offensive standpoint, he's our guy in terms of a distributor. He's our best in transition, pitching the ball ahead. I love when he gets into the lane, draws 2, plays off 2 feet, and is able to find teammates, and those are the things, and get us organized so that we can execute. So those are the things. It's not just the shot. And one of the things that I have encouraged them about, and I gave them an example for myself, is when I played, one of the things, the only stat that I ever looked at was I never wanted to shoot over 50% of my shots from 3. I just wanted to get a layup, a floater, get to the free throw line. I don't care how good a shooter you are. I think that's very difficult just to stay from 3-point range. And so Kyan has the ability to be able to score in a number of different areas inside the arc. And so just encourage him to use those things in his bag and not just stay out there from 3-point range.
I think it's a great lesson, and I appreciate what Hubert Davis is trying to get across to him. And I feel like myself and Anthony, we've done a good job this year when he hasn't scored, pointed out, but look at his individual defense, or he had a 6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, whatever it is, still pointing out the ways he's impacting winning. But without Seth Trimble and without Luka Bogovac shooting well from the outside, without Jonathan Powell coming off the bench and shooting well from the outside, there is a need for him to be much more explosive and dynamic as an offensive player. And I think 7 games has given us a sample size for, if you want to draw conclusions on him, feel free. I've come away saying I need more from him because I believe there's more in him. If I didn't think he could give this team more, like I felt like that way about Elliot Cadeau, then I'd communicate that. But I don't feel that way. I mean, I saw him against Kansas play the way that he played. You saw against St. Bonaventure, he was really efficient and effective. Is he going to maybe be what I talked him up to be? That answer is probably not. I was probably wrong. But there's still more in his bag to be a difference maker offensively. And Carolina desperately needs that. And they need that to start happening sooner rather than later. What better place than on the road tonight in Rupp Arena in front of what's going to be a lively crowd and a lively national TV audience. One last just kind of general thought and comment from Hubert, and then we'll turn our attention to tonight's opponent. Carolina has played 7 games, but Hubert Davis admitted he's still learning what he has in this roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always trying to figure out the team, throughout the entire year. But I think for us, maybe even a little bit more. Luka didn't play the first exhibition games, and so that was a team. Then he was ready to play the first game. That was a team, and then Seth got hurt in the last 5 games. This is a new team, and so I think, yes, trying to figure it out. And so when Seth comes back, another team. And so whether it's December or today, we're just always trying to get better, trying to grow, and I just want each one of these players to play at their best.
I think the good news is that he knows more about what he has in this roster than he felt like this time a year ago. When Carolina came back from Hawaii, beaten and battered and bruised, they'd get blown out by Alabama at home in the ACC SEC Challenge. And at this point last year, he was still searching. And he's still searching right now. A lot of that has to do with the Seth Trimble injury, and a lot of this just kind of being out of whack for where you thought you were going to be, because you saw what Carolina could be in that second half against Kansas back the first Friday of the season. But this is just the reality. And it's the benefit of Carolina playing the schedule that they're playing this year as opposed to what they played last year. And I'll reiterate it. I understand why Carolina has scheduled this way. I think Hubert Davis wants to play as many home games as possible, so on and so forth. But you still have to learn about your group. And it's easier to do that, I think, when you're playing the competition that you played last Thursday than what you're playing and what you're going to play tonight, as opposed to beating up on, middle of the road teams in one bid conferences. So it's the reality of the sport, though, with the transfer portal and everything. I think it's why you're seeing a philosophy switch in scheduling from Carolina. But regardless is he probably will not know what he has fully until Seth Trimble is back and this roster plays an extended handful of games together. He got a glimpse of it in the first 2 games of the year, but until Trimble is back and this rotation gets set and defined, he's still going to be learning as this season moves along. Let's turn our attention now to tonight's game against the Kentucky Wildcats. We got 2 comments from Hubert on that, and then we'll get out of here. But I wanted to read this comment really quickly from Michael Daniels on YouTube. He writes in, "I love my Tar Heels, but I have no faith in Hubert Davis to win these big games. I'm really pulling for him because he bleeds Carolina blue, but you have to win big games." And that's something that he has not done. And look, I had this conversation with a guy at work today who brought up how I think he's 15-25 against ranked opponents, and he's 19-34 against top 50 in the KenPom. I can't run away from those stats, and I'm not going to run away from those stats as someone that is in the camp of Hubert Davis and being his defense attorney. But it was beating Coach K in his final home game not a big game. Was beating Coach K in the Final Four not a big game? Like, don't give me that he cannot win big games. He doesn't win them as consistently as we like and we expect as Carolina fans, because Dean Smith and Roy Williams won those games, it felt like 95% of the time, and which meant that we were spoiled and we didn't appreciate the success. Hubert Davis has proven he can be what you expect a Carolina basketball head coach to be. We just want to see it and need to see it more consistently. And that's what this year is really all about. This, I think, with the money that they invested, with all the resource that they gave him, this is an evaluation year for Hubert. And I think it's one where he passes the test, then Carolina will move forward. If it's more of what it's the same of what it was last year and 3 years ago, Carolina might have to have a hard conversation. But this whole idea that he can't win big games is a lie. You don't get to the Final Four, you don't get to a national championship unless you win big games. You don't win an ACC regular season title unless you win big games. He's done both of those things. He's made 2 Sweet 16s in 4 years. You don't do that unless you win big games. Just has to start doing it at a much more consistent rate. All right. So for the 2 quotes about Kentucky, he was asked first off if he would like to bring back the home and home, and I think this was a really good question because when I got into the sport in the mid 2000s, Carolina and Kentucky played in Chapel Hill. Carolina and Kentucky played in Lexington. This is the first time these 2 schools have played on campus since 2014, 2015. And Hubert Davis talked about maybe his desire to get the Wildcats back on campus sometime in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, the last couple of years playing Kansas home and home. You have 2 historic programs, and to be able to play each other on each other's campuses is really special. And you mentioned the last time, 2014, that we played in Lexington, but it was a home and home series. I think at that time, us in Kentucky weren't involved in the Champions Classic, and so it feels like we match up against them every year, whether it's on a neutral site. But, obviously playing them there and when they come to Chapel Hill is something special and something that I like and our players like to compete against.
And hopefully the schedule makers do us a favor and let Kentucky visit Carolina. Maybe it's not next year. I know that, they might want to have Carolina and Arkansas matchup. So you get John Calipari maybe in Chapel Hill with the Razorbacks, or maybe they send Carolina to Tennessee, Auburn, whoever that SEC opponent may be. But there is something different when these 2 teams meet on campus. As I mentioned, I view them as a rival. I'm pretty sure Kentucky fans view us in some sort of fashion as a rival. It's not Carolina Duke. It's not Louisville, Kentucky. But you know what? One day it could be. If what I think happens and Carolina is an SEC program, then this has a chance to. It will still never overtake Duke. I think both programs will be committed to playing at least once a year. But Carolina, Kentucky would rise in terms of interconference battles as maybe the premier rivalry in the sport. So tonight will be a great environment. It'll be a great test for our guys. It'll have a big game feel, a 9:30 tip, Dickie V on the call for ESPN, and hopefully we can get them back in our building sometime sooner rather than later. One last piece of sound, and then we'll get out of here for this quick edition of a podcast here on a Carolina basketball game day. He was simply asked what stood out about Kentucky when he watched them on film.
Yeah, I mean, they can really shoot. I mean, they just, they've got guys that deep range can really shoot the basketball, but these guys can also put the ball on the floor. They can penetrate and get to the basket. Very versatile on the offensive end. They're basketball players. They can pass, they can penetrate, they can shoot. Defensively, they've got the versatility to switch a number of different rotations, and then they have, bigs that can block and alter shots. And so it'll be a challenge for us, but we're excited about the challenge tomorrow night.
I love it. They're basketball players. That's a good thing because hopefully our basketball players show up and show out. Pretty much everything we told you in the previews, what Hubert Davis reiterated right there. They can shoot it. They can shoot it really well. They defend at a high level. They get to the board. They do a lot of things really well, even though they're just 5-2 and their fan base is panicking because they've lost to 2 teams that might go to the Final Four this year. Regardless, this is a good basketball team. They're going to pose a threat and a challenge to Carolina, although they're going to be, without Jalen Lowe tonight. He's going to miss tonight's game. There was some scuttlebutt about 2 other players maybe not being able to go, and if that's the case, I think that really opens the door for Carolina to maybe kind of come in here and get away and steal a victory. So we'll have to wait and see. But regardless, tonight's gonna be fun. It'll be great. Staying up till probably 11:45 midnight or so, watching this team compete and hopefully they respond after the disappointing performance and effort against Michigan State back on Thanksgiving night. That is going to wrap up this edition of the podcast. In the meantime, guys, we will direct you guys to the website. That's HeelToughBlog.com. The preview of tonight's game can be found on the website. I'll have that recap for you guys posted tomorrow morning. I'm not going to stay up until 1, 2 a.m. We'll have to be up at 4 a.m. to recap the game. I'll have it for you probably around 11:30 or so tomorrow as I continue to take you through the college basketball season. It's National Signing Day for high school football, high school recruiting tomorrow on the football side of things. So a big day on the site, as Anthony will have you covered, as Carolina is expected to sign their 40-man class tomorrow afternoon. So, he's keeping you up to date on that front. Transfer portal entries, Carolina has already lost a handful of players into the portal. We expect many more to follow. We're on Freddie Kitchens' watch, maybe to be ousted as Carolina's offensive coordinator. So all that great Carolina basketball, Tar Heel football coverage can be found HeelToughBlog.com. As for the podcast, you guys know where to find us. Every major podcasting platform. Just search the Four Corners Podcast and we will pop up. There, we strongly encourage you to rate, review, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any audio editions of the show. If you're a video consumer of the podcast, best way to keep up with us, like and follow the Facebook page at Heel Tough Blog. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Heel Tough Blog, or follow me on Twitter at HTB_Josh. The second that we go live, if you're following on any of those three platforms, you'll be notified. You can jump in and be a part of our conversation around the Heels. But with that, that is going to wrap up this edition of the show. I want to thank everybody once again for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.